The gunshot shattered the windshield 3 seconds before Vanessa Sterling's SUV broke through the guardrail and plunged into darkness. She didn't scream. She had stopped screaming years ago when she learned that showing fear meant losing everything. Blood ran hot down her temple as freezing air ripped through the broken glass, and the vehicle tumbled end over end through pine branches and rock. Metal shrieked. Her wheelchair slammed against the ceiling. Then the world went black and silent, except for the howl of the blizzard outside. When she opened her eyes, a stranger's face appeared in the broken window, backlit by a flashlight beam cutting through falling snow. "Don't move," the man said. "I need to see if you're dying first." Vanessa tried to laugh, but only tasted blood. If you want to know whether the coldest billionaire in New York survived the night she was supposed to die, and what happened when she met the one man who refused to save her the way she expected, then stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The conference room on the 63rd floor of Sterling Industries smelled like expensive coffee and suppressed rage. Vanessa sat at the head of the table in her custom wheelchair, hands folded in her lap, watching 12 board members pretend they weren't terrified of her. "The audit's complete," she said. Her voice was quiet, but sharp enough to cut glass. "Someone's been moving money offshore for 18 months. $47 million vanished into shell companies that don't exist on paper, but somehow own 3 properties in the Caymans." Gregory Marks, her CFO for the past 6 years, shifted in his seat. Sweat beaded at his hairline even though the room was cold enough to preserve meat. "Vanessa, we've been over this," he said carefully. "The discrepancies are accounting errors. We're cleaning them up." "Accounting errors," Vanessa repeated. She didn't blink. $47 million worth of accounting errors. Markets are volatile, right? "Don't insult me, Greg." The room went silent. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, snow fell over Manhattan in thick gray curtains. December had come early and brutal this year, burying the city under ice and wind that rattled even these reinforced glass panes 60 stories above the street. Vanessa rolled herself back from the table slowly, letting the wheels whisper against the polished floor. 12 pairs of eyes tracked her movement. She had learned years ago that silence was a weapon, that if you stayed quiet long enough, people started confessing to things you hadn't even accused them of yet. "I want names," she said finally. "By Friday, whoever's stealing from this company will be out of a job and facing federal charges before Christmas." Gregory's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." "I've made plenty of those," Vanessa said. "This isn't one of them." She turned her wheelchair toward the door. Her assistant Emma was already there, holding it open with the kind of neutral expression that came from working for someone the media called the Ice Queen for 3 straight years. Behind her, the board members erupted into whispered arguments the moment the door clicked shut. Emma fell into step beside Vanessa's chair as they moved down the hallway toward the executive elevator. "They're panicking," Emma said quietly. "Good." Greg called someone right before the meeting, twice. Both times he left the room. Vanessa's fingers tightened on the armrest, but her face stayed calm. "Get me copies of his phone records." "Already done. They're on your desk." That was why Emma had survived 4 years as Vanessa's assistant when most people quit after 6 months. She anticipated problems before they became disasters and never asked questions that didn't need answers. The elevator doors opened. Vanessa rolled inside and Emma hit the button for the parking garage. "You're leaving early?" Emma asked. "I need to think." "The storm's getting worse. They're saying the highways might close by tonight." Vanessa glanced at her watch. 4:30 in the afternoon and the sky outside looked like midnight. "I'll be fine." Emma hesitated. "Do you want me to arrange a driver?" "No." The elevator dropped 63 floors in smooth silence. Vanessa closed her eyes and let herself feel the weight pulling at her chest, the exhaustion that had been building for months, maybe years. She was 30 years old, and she felt like she'd been running a war for decades. The accident had happened when she was 24. A drunk driver, a shattered spine, 6 months of surgeries that saved her life but couldn't save her legs. She remembered waking up in the hospital and hearing the doctors tell her father, the great Richard Sterling, founder of Sterling Industries, that his daughter would never walk again. She also remembered her father's response. "Then she'll learn to roll faster than everyone else walks." He hadn't meant it cruelly. He'd meant it as a challenge. a refusal to let the world treat her like something broken. But somewhere along the way, Vanessa had taken that lesson too far. She'd turned herself into something harder than steel, colder than the boardroom, sharper than the lawyers who tried to negotiate with her. She had spent 6 years proving she was stronger than the accident, stronger than the people who looked at her wheelchair first and her brain second, stronger than the executives who smiled to her face and whispered damaged goods behind her back until she fired them one by one and replaced them with people who were too afraid to whisper anything at all. And now she was alone at the top of a 63-story tower, uncovering corruption inside her own company and realizing that the people she trusted most were the ones stealing from her. The elevator opened onto the parking garage. Cold air rolled in, carrying the smell of gasoline and winter. Vanessa's black Range Rover was parked in her private space near the elevator. She'd had it modified with hand controls 2 years ago, everything she needed to drive without using her legs. It had cost a fortune, but it was worth it for the independence, for the ability to leave whenever she wanted without waiting for someone else to take her. She transferred herself into the driver's seat, folded the wheelchair, and stowed it in the back. Emma stood by the elevator doors, arms crossed against the cold. "Text me when you're home safe," Emma called. Vanessa didn't answer. She started the engine, pulled out of the garage, and disappeared into the storm. Whoa. The highway north out of Manhattan was a crawl of red taillights and honking horns. Vanessa sat in traffic for 40 minutes before the cars finally started moving, and by then the snow was falling so thick she could barely see the vehicle in front of her. Her phone buzzed, a text from Gregory. "We need to talk tonight." She deleted it without responding. Another text came through, this one from a number she didn't recognize. "You should have stayed out of it." Vanessa's breath caught. She stared at the message, read it twice, then locked her phone and tossed it onto the passenger seat. Someone was threatening her. That shouldn't have surprised her. She'd been threatened before. Angry investors, bitter ex-employees, competitors who wanted her to fail. But this felt different. This felt close. She pressed the accelerator and pulled into the left lane, speeding past the slower cars. The wipers struggled to keep the windshield clear. The headlights barely cut through the white curtain of snow. Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it. 20 miles outside the city, the traffic thinned. 30 miles out, she was alone on a 2-lane mountain highway with nothing but forest on both sides and snow piling up fast on the asphalt. She should have turned around, she knew that. But something in her chest refused to go back, refused to sit in her apartment and wait for the next threat, the next betrayal, the next fight. She was so tired of fighting. The road curved sharply to the left. Vanessa took the turn carefully, hands steady on the wheel. The tires slipped slightly but held. Then the headlights appeared in her rearview mirror. At first she thought it was just another car, someone else stupid enough to be driving through a blizzard in the mountains at night. But the headlights got closer, too close. They were right on her bumper now, high beams glaring into her mirrors. Vanessa's pulse kicked up. She pressed the gas, trying to pull ahead, but the road was too slick. The other vehicle matched her speed, staying inches from her rear fender. Her phone lit up on the passenger seat. Another text. Last chance. She grabbed the phone, read the message, and her blood went cold. The vehicle behind her surged forward and slammed into her bumper. The Range Rover fishtailed. Vanessa fought the wheel, trying to straighten out, but the tires couldn't grip the ice underneath the snow. She spun sideways, then forward again, and the vehicle behind her rammed her a second time, harder. This time she didn't have control. The SUV veered off the road, crashed through a guardrail, and went airborne over the edge of the ravine. Vanessa didn't scream. She gripped the wheel and braced herself as the vehicle flipped end over end through darkness and tree branches and freezing wind. Metal shrieked, glass shattered. Her wheelchair flew loose and slammed into the ceiling above her head. Then the SUV hit something solid, a tree, a boulder, she didn't know, and everything went black. Pain woke her. Not sharp pain. Dull, heavy pain that radiated from her ribs and her shoulder and the side of her head. She opened her eyes slowly and saw blood on the deflated airbag in front of her. Her blood. The windshield was shattered. Snow was blowing in through the broken glass, covering the dashboard, the seats, her lap. Vanessa tried to move and gasped. Her ribs screamed. Something was broken. Maybe more than one something. She reached for her phone, but it wasn't there. She looked around wildly and saw it lying in the snow outside the vehicle, screen cracked and dark. The SUV was on its side, wedged between two trees at the bottom of a steep ravine. She couldn't see the road, couldn't see anything except forest and snow and darkness. No one's coming, she thought. The people who ran her off the road weren't going to call for help, and no one else knew where she was. She was going to freeze to death down here. Vanessa laughed, a short, bitter sound that hurt her ribs. After everything she had survived, after clawing her way to the top of a billion-dollar empire, while half the world doubted she could even run a meeting, she was going to die alone in the woods because she'd been too stubborn to turn around. She closed her eyes. Then she heard footsteps crunching through snow. Her eyes snapped open. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness outside the broken windshield, sweeping back and forth across the wreckage. "Jesus," a man's voice said. "What the hell happened here?" Vanessa tried to speak but only managed a weak cough. Blood was running down her temple again, warm against the cold air. The flashlight beam found her face. She squinted into the light, barely able to make out the figure holding it. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a heavy coat and a wool hat pulled low over his face. "Don't move," the man said. He crouched down beside the shattered window, close enough now that she could see his face. Rugged features, dark eyes that scanned her injuries with the efficiency of someone who'd seen worse. A scar running through his left eyebrow. "Are you alone?" he asked. Vanessa nodded. "Can you feel your legs?" She almost laughed again. "Never could." The man frowned, then glanced down and saw the wheelchair crushed against the ceiling of the overturned SUV. His expression didn't change. No pity, no shock, just a quick assessment of the situation. "I'm going to pull you out," he said. "It's going to hurt. Wait." But he was already reaching through the broken window, wrapping one arm behind her shoulders and the other under her knees. Vanessa bit back a scream as he lifted her, her ribs grinding together, and dragged her out of the wreckage into the freezing night. He set her down gently in the snow and immediately started checking her pulse, her pupils, the gash on her head. "I'm fine," Vanessa managed. "You're bleeding out of your skull and you just got thrown off a mountain," the man said flatly. "You're not fine." "Who are you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he shrugged off his coat and draped it over her, then pulled out his phone. No signal. He swore under his breath. "Roads are closed," he said. "Storm took out the cell towers. No one's getting up here until morning." "Great," Vanessa muttered. "So I'll just freeze to death slowly instead of quickly." The man stood up and looked down at her with an expression she couldn't read. "My cabin's half a mile from here. Can you hold on that long?" "Do I have a choice?" "Not really." He picked her up again, this time cradling her against his chest like she weighed nothing, and started walking through the snow. Vanessa wanted to protest, wanted to tell him she didn't need to be carried like some helpless damsel in a disaster movie. But her ribs hurt too much to argue, and the warmth of his body was the only thing keeping her from shaking apart. "What's your name?" she asked after a while. "Cole." "I'm Vanessa." "I know." She blinked up at him. "You know?" "Everyone knows who Vanessa Sterling is," Cole said. "You're on the news every other week." "Lucky me." "You're also supposed to be one of the smartest people in New York. So why the hell were you driving through a blizzard in the middle of the night?" Vanessa closed her eyes. "Long story. We've got all night." Set. Cole's cabin was small, rough, and warm. A single room with a wood stove in the corner, a narrow bed against one wall, a table and two chairs near the stove, and shelves lined with canned food and tools. It smelled like sawdust and coffee. He set Vanessa down on the bed, grabbed a first aid kit from one of the shelves, and started cleaning the cut on her head without asking permission. "This is going to sting," he said. "I've had worse." He didn't respond, just worked quietly, his hands steady and careful. Vanessa watched him in the flickering light from the stove. He looked like he was in his early 30s, maybe a year or two older than her. His face was hard, not cruel, just worn down by something she couldn't name yet. The scar through his eyebrow was old. So were the calluses on his hands. "You live up here alone?" she asked. "Most of the time." "What do you do?" "Fix things." He taped a bandage over the cut. "Your ribs are probably cracked. Can't do anything about that except wrap them and wait. He pulled out an elastic bandage and hesitated. I need to lift your shirt. Vanessa nodded. She was too tired to care about modesty. Cole worked quickly, wrapping the bandage around her ribs tight enough to stabilize them, but not so tight she couldn't breathe. When he finished, he stepped back and studied her like she was an engine he was trying to diagnose. You'll live, he said. Thanks for the reassurance. He almost smiled. Almost. Then he turned away and started feeding wood into the stove. Vanessa leaned back against the wall, exhausted. Every part of her hurt. Her head throbbed. Her ribs ached with every breath. But she was alive. And that was more than she'd expected 20 minutes ago. Why'd you help me? She asked. Cole glanced over his shoulder. You needed help. Most people wouldn't climb down a ravine in the middle of a blizzard for a stranger. I'm not most people. Clearly. He closed the stove door and sat down in one of the chairs near the table. For a long moment, he just stared at the fire, his face unreadable. I heard the crash, he said finally. I was closing up the garage when I heard metal hitting trees. Thought maybe it was an animal. Deer run into the road up here sometimes. But when I got close enough to see the guardrail torn open, he trailed off. I figured whoever went over was already dead. Then I saw the headlights still on at the bottom. Lucky me, Vanessa said again. Maybe. Cole looked at her. Or maybe someone wanted you dead and you just didn't die fast enough. Vanessa's chest tightened. What makes you say that? Because cars don't just fly off mountains by accident, not unless the driver's drunk or the brakes fail, and you don't seem drunk. She didn't answer. Cole stood up, walked over to the bed, and crouched down so they were eye level. His gaze was sharp, searching, and uncomfortably direct. Someone ran you off that road, he said quietly. Didn't they? Vanessa swallowed. I don't know. Yeah, you do. She looked away. It doesn't matter. I'll deal with it when I get back to the city. If you get back. That made her look at him again. What's that supposed to mean? Cole stood up and walked to the window. He pulled back the curtain and stared out into the storm. Roads are closed. Phones are down. No one's getting up or down this mountain until the snow stops and the plows come through. Could be tomorrow. Could be 3 days. 3 days, Vanessa repeated. And if whoever ran you off that road thinks you're dead, they're not looking for you, but the second you show up alive. He let the sentence hang. Vanessa felt something cold settle in her stomach. He was right. Whoever had tried to kill her tonight thought they'd succeeded. The moment she resurfaced, they'd try again. So what do I do? She asked. Cole turned back to face her. You stay here. Stay quiet. And when the roads open, you don't go back to New York alone. I don't have a choice. I have a company to run. You have a target on your back, Cole said flatly. And from what I've seen on the news, you've made plenty of enemies. That's what happens when you succeed. No, Cole said. That's what happens when you forget that success makes people desperate. Vanessa stared at him. There was something in his voice, something bitter and familiar, like he'd learned that lesson the hard way. Who did you lose? She asked quietly. Cole's jaw tightened. What? You talk like someone who's been desperate before, someone who's lost something. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then he turned back to the window and said, Get some sleep. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. Vanessa wanted to push, wanted to know what haunted this man who lived alone in the mountains and rescued strangers in the middle of the night. But exhaustion was dragging her down, pulling her under. Her eyes closed. The last thing she heard before sleep took her was Cole's voice, low and rough. You're safe here. For now. Duh. She woke to the sound of a child laughing. Vanessa's eyes snapped open. Sunlight was streaming through the window, pale winter sunlight that turned the snow outside into blinding white. Her ribs ached, her head throbbed, but the laughter was real. She sat up slowly and looked around. The cabin was empty except for her. The stove was still burning, the fire fresh. Someone had left a blanket over her while she slept. The laughter came again, muffled through the walls. Vanessa slid herself to the edge of the bed and realized her wheelchair wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. It was still crushed inside the SUV at the bottom of the ravine. She gritted her teeth, grabbed the edge of the table, and hauled herself upright. Her legs didn't work, but her arms were strong from 6 years of hauling herself in and out of chairs, cars, beds. She hopped awkwardly toward the door, using the furniture for balance. When she opened the door, cold air hit her face and she saw them. Cole was standing in the snow outside the cabin, building a snowman with a little girl who couldn't have been older than 7. The girl had dark curly hair and Cole's eyes. She was laughing as she packed snow onto the snowman's body, completely oblivious to the fact that her father looked like he hadn't slept. Vanessa leaned against the doorframe, watching. Cole glanced up and saw her. "You shouldn't be standing." "I shouldn't be a lot of things." The little girl looked over and her eyes went wide. "Dad, who's that?" "A friend," Cole said. "She got hurt last night. She's staying with us for a little while." The girl walked over, completely unafraid. "I'm Lily. Are you okay?" Vanessa looked down at the kid, at her open, curious face, and felt something twist in her chest. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." "Lily," Cole said. "Inside. Now." The girl pouted but obeyed, running past Vanessa into the cabin. Cole followed, and Vanessa hobbled back inside after them. Cole picked up Lily and set her on one of the chairs. "Stay here. I need to talk to Vanessa." "Can I have cocoa?" "After." He walked Vanessa back to the bed, helped her sit down, and then crouched in front of her with that same unreadable expression. "You have a daughter," Vanessa said. "Yeah. You didn't mention that last night." "You didn't ask." Vanessa glanced at Lily, who was swinging her legs and humming to herself. "Where's her mother?" Cole's face went hard. "Gone." "Gone as in dead," Cole said flatly. 3 years ago." Vanessa's breath caught. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You didn't kill her." The bitterness in his voice was sharp enough to cut. Vanessa wanted to ask more, wanted to know what had happened, but Cole stood up and walked away before she could. "I'm going into town," he said. Lily's staying with you." "Wait, what?" "Road's just opened. I need to check if anyone's looking for your car. If they are, we'll know someone's trying to find you." "And if they are?" Cole looked at her. "Then you're in more trouble than you thought." He grabbed his coat, kissed Lily on the forehead, and walked out the door. Vanessa sat there, staring after him. Lily hopped off the chair and walked over. "Do you want cocoa?" Vanessa blinked. "Sure." The kid grinned and ran to the stove. And Vanessa realized, for the first time in 6 years, she had absolutely no control over what happened next. Lily made terrible cocoa. She used too much powder, not enough milk, and stirred it with a butter knife because she couldn't find a spoon. The result was a thick, lukewarm sludge that tasted like someone had dissolved a candy bar in dirty water. Vanessa drank it anyway. "Is it good?" Lily asked, watching her with those big, dark eyes that were too much like Cole's. "It's perfect," Vanessa lied. The kid beamed. She climbed onto the bed next to Vanessa and sat cross-legged, swinging one foot back and forth. "Dad says you're staying for a while." "Just until the roads are safe." "Are you in trouble?" Vanessa paused, the mug halfway to her lips. "Why would you think that?" "Because Dad only brings people here when they're in trouble, like Mr. Harrison last year when his house burned down, or Mrs. Chen when her husband got mean." Vanessa set the mug down carefully. "Your dad helps a lot of people?" "All the time. He says people need help and nobody else is going to do it." Lily tilted her head. "So are you? In trouble?" There was no point lying to a 7-year-old who'd already figured out half the truth. "Yeah," Vanessa said. "I think I am." "Is someone trying to hurt you?" "Maybe." "Dad won't let them." The certainty in Lily's voice made Vanessa's chest tighten. This kid had already lost her mother, and she still believed her father could protect everyone. That kind of faith was dangerous. It got people killed. "What happened to your mom?" Vanessa asked quietly. Lily's face went blank. Not sad, just empty, like someone had flipped a switch. "She went away." "I'm sorry." "Dad says she's not coming back, ever." "Do you remember her?" Lily shrugged. "A little. She smelled like flowers and she used to sing me songs before bed. But then one day she didn't come home and Dad said she was gone and I had to be brave. Vanessa felt something crack inside her chest. She'd spent 6 years building walls around herself, convincing herself that being alone was safer than letting anyone close enough to hurt her. But sitting here next to this kid who'd been brave since she was 4 years old, Vanessa realized she didn't know the first thing about bravery. "You're doing a good job," Vanessa said. "At what?" "Being brave." Lily looked at her, serious and solemn. "Are you brave?" "I used to think so." "What changed?" Vanessa laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Everything." They sat in silence for a while, drinking the terrible cocoa and watching the snow fall outside the window. Eventually, Lily got bored and started showing Vanessa her collection of rocks, different shapes and colors she'd found in the woods, and arranged on the windowsill like treasure. "This one's my favorite," Lily said, holding up a smooth black stone the size of a quarter. "Dad says it's probably from a meteor." "Is it?" "I don't know, but it's cool to pretend." Vanessa smiled. "Yeah, it is." An hour later, Cole came back. He walked through the door carrying a duffel bag and looking worse than he had when he left. His jaw was tight. His eyes were hard. And when he saw Vanessa sitting on the bed with Lily, something in his expression shifted, softened just slightly, then locked back down. "Lily, go play outside," he said. "But it's cold. Now." The kid knew better than to argue. She grabbed her coat and ran out, leaving Vanessa alone with Cole. He set the duffel bag on the table and unzipped it. Inside was Vanessa's phone, cracked but still functional, along with her wallet, her ID, and a laptop she'd left in the SUV. "You went back to the crash site," Vanessa said. "Yeah." "Why?" "Because I needed to know if anyone else had been there." He pulled out the phone and handed it to her. "They were." Vanessa's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Someone climbed down into that ravine after you. Boot prints in the snow. Fresh ones." "They looked through the wreckage, probably checking to see if you were still inside." He paused. "When they didn't find a body, they left." "How do you know they were looking for a body?" "Because they brought a body bag." The room went cold. Vanessa stared at him, her pulse hammering in her ears. "You're lying." "I found it in the snow 20 feet from your car. Empty. They were ready to carry you out if you were dead." Cole sat down in the chair across from her. "So yeah, someone tried to kill you last night, and now they know they failed." Vanessa's hands started shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to stop the tremor, but it didn't help. "Did you call the police?" "No signal. Towers are still down." "Then drive me into town. I'll call from there." "And tell them what?" Cole asked. "That someone ran you off the road, but you can't prove it because there's no witnesses and no cameras? That someone brought a body bag, but you don't know who? It's better than sitting here doing nothing." "No," Cole said flatly. "It's a good way to get yourself killed." Vanessa stood up. Well, tried to. Her legs didn't cooperate and she stumbled, grabbing the edge of the bed to keep from falling. Cole was on his feet instantly, steadying her with one hand on her arm. "Let me go," she said. "You can't even walk." "I don't need to walk. I need to—" She stopped, her voice breaking. "I need to do something." Cole didn't let go. "You need to stay alive." "Why do you care?" The question came out sharper than she meant it to. Cole's jaw tightened, and for a second Vanessa thought he was going to snap back at her. Instead, he just stared at her with those dark, unreadable eyes. "Because I've already watched one woman die when I could have saved her," he said quietly. "I'm not doing it again." Vanessa's breath caught. "Your wife." "Yeah." "What happened?" Cole let go of her arm and stepped back. "That's not your business." "You just told me someone tried to kill me and now they're hunting me. I think I have a right to know who I'm hiding with." "You're not hiding with me. You're hiding from them." "Then tell me why you're helping me." Cole turned away, ran a hand through his hair, and let out a long breath. When he spoke again, his voice was rough, like the words were being dragged out of him against his will. 3 years ago, my wife Claire went into town to buy groceries. She never came home. They found her car on the side of the road with the driver's door open and her purse still inside. No blood. No signs of a struggle. Just gone. Vanessa felt her chest tighten. Did they find her? 2 weeks later. in the woods 10 miles from where her car was. She'd been shot twice in the back of the head and buried in a shallow grave. Oh my. Don't, Cole said sharply. Don't say you're sorry. I've heard it 1,000 times and it doesn't help. Vanessa closed her mouth. Cole stared at the wall, his hands clenched into fists. The police said it was random. Wrong place, wrong time. Maybe someone tried to carjack her and it went bad, but I knew that was bullshit. How? Because Claire was careful. She didn't pick up hitchhikers. She didn't stop for strangers. And she sure as hell didn't let someone walk up to her car without locking the doors. He looked at Vanessa. Someone she knew killed her. Someone she trusted. Did you tell the police? Of course I did. They didn't care. Case went cold after 6 months. No suspects. No leads. Just another dead woman nobody bothered to care about because we lived in the middle of nowhere and she didn't matter to anyone important. The bitterness in his voice was like acid. Vanessa had spent years surrounded by people who smiled while they stabbed her in the back. But she'd never heard rage like this, raw and unfiltered and so deeply buried that it had turned into something darker than anger. So you've been looking for her killer yourself, Vanessa said, for 3 years. Have you found anything? Not enough. Cole sat down again, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. But I know it's connected to something bigger. Claire worked at the county clerk's office. She handled property records, deed transfers, boring stuff. Except a few weeks before she died, she told me something didn't add up. She said someone was buying up land in the area through shell companies, and the numbers were wrong. Vanessa's pulse kicked up. Shell companies? Yeah, why? Because that's what someone's doing to my company. Moving money through fake corporations that don't exist on paper. Cole looked at her sharply. You think it's connected? I don't know. Maybe. Vanessa's mind was racing now, putting pieces together. What kind of land was being bought? Forest, mountains, hundreds of acres. Worthless unless you're planning to develop it, and nobody develops out here. Too remote, too expensive. Unless you're not planning to develop it, Vanessa said slowly. Unless you're using the land for something else. Like what? I don't know, but if someone's buying property through shell companies and then killing anyone who asks questions, she trailed off, her stomach twisting. Then your wife wasn't random, she was a liability. Cole's face went pale. You're saying they killed her because she figured it out. I'm saying someone's running a criminal operation big enough that they'll murder people to protect it. And if they're tied to my company, if they've been laundering money through Sterling Industries, then I just became a liability too. The room went silent except for the crackle of the fire in the stove. We need to figure out who's behind this, Vanessa said. We? You want to know who killed your wife? I want to know who tried to kill me. Seems like we're after the same people. Cole studied her for a long moment. You don't even know me. I know you pulled me out of a wrecked car in the middle of a blizzard when you could have left me to freeze. I know you've been raising your daughter alone for 3 years while hunting for answers nobody else cares about, and I know you're not going to stop until you find them. Vanessa leaned forward. So yeah, we're doing this together. You can barely stand. I don't need to stand. I need to think. And if whoever's after you shows up here, then you shoot them, Vanessa said. I saw the shotgun by your door. Cole almost smiled. Almost. You're serious. I'm a billionaire with a target on my back, hiding in a cabin with a single father and his kid. Of course I'm serious. He stared at her. Then he stood up, walked to the duffel bag, and pulled out her laptop. Can you access your company's files from this? Yeah, why? Because if someone's stealing from you, there's a trail. Money always leaves a trail. He handed her the laptop. Find it. Vanessa opened the laptop, powered it on, and waited for it to boot up. Her ribs ached, her head throbbed, but her mind was sharp and focused in a way it hadn't been in months. This was what she was good at, finding patterns, connecting dots, taking 1,000 pieces of information and turning them into a weapon. I'll need internet, she said. There's a coffee shop in town with Wi-Fi. We'll go tomorrow. Why not today? Because whoever's looking for you will be watching the roads. We wait until dark, less chance of being spotted. Vanessa nodded. It made sense. She hated it, but it made sense. Cole walked to the door and opened it. Lily, Come inside. The kid came running back in, cheeks red from the cold. She looked at Vanessa, then at Cole, then back at Vanessa. Are you guys friends now? She asked. Something like that, Cole said. Lily grinned. Good. You were being grumpy. I'm always grumpy. Yeah, but now you're less grumpy. Cole sighed and ruffled her hair. Go wash your hands. Lunch in 10 minutes. Lily ran off to the tiny bathroom in the corner. Cole glanced at Vanessa. You should rest, he said. You look like hell. Thanks. I mean it. You're not going to be any use if you pass out. Vanessa wanted to argue, but exhaustion was already dragging at her. She nodded and lay back on the bed, pulling the blanket over herself. Cole turned away and started pulling food out of the cabinets. The last thing Vanessa saw before her eyes closed was him standing at the stove, making lunch for his daughter, looking like a man who'd been doing this alone for too long. She fell asleep wondering what it must be like to carry that much weight every single day. When she woke up, it was dark outside. The cabin was lit by a single lamp near the table where Cole sat, reading something on his phone. Lily was curled up in the other bed against the far wall, snoring softly. Vanessa sat up slowly, wincing as her ribs protested. What time is it? 8, Cole said without looking up. Why didn't you wake me? Because you needed sleep more than you needed food. Vanessa's stomach growled, betraying her. Cole stood up, walked to the stove, and pulled out a plate covered with a towel. Underneath was a sandwich and some kind of soup that smelled better than anything she'd eaten in weeks. Eat, he said, handing it to her. She ate. The soup was simple. Chicken broth, vegetables, nothing fancy, but it was hot, and it filled the empty space in her stomach that she hadn't realized was there. Cole sat back down and watched her. You want to tell me why someone wants you dead? Vanessa swallowed a mouthful of soup. I found out my CFO's been embezzling money, $47 million over 18 months. When I told the board I was going to the feds, he threatened me. Then someone ran me off the road. You think it was him? I don't know, maybe. Or maybe he told someone else and they decided I was a problem. What kind of people are we talking about? The kind who hide behind lawyers and shell companies. The kind who've been stealing from me for years and think they're untouchable. Cole leaned back in his chair. They're not wrong. People like that usually are untouchable. Not this time. You sound confident. I am. Vanessa set the plate aside. I didn't build a billion-dollar company by letting people steal from me. I've destroyed careers for less than this. And that's why they want you dead, Cole said, because you're dangerous. Good. Let them be afraid. Cole shook his head. You don't get it. Fear makes people desperate. And desperate people don't care about collateral damage. What's that supposed to mean? It means they'll come after everyone around you, your assistant, your employees, anyone you've talked to in the last week. He paused, including me and Lily. Vanessa's chest went tight. I didn't ask you to help me. No, but I did anyway, and now we're both in this. Then why are you still helping me? Cole looked at her for a long time. Because 3 years ago, I stood in the woods and watched them pull my wife's body out of the ground. And I swore that if I ever got a chance to find the people responsible, I'd take it, no matter what. Even if it puts your daughter in danger? Lily's already in danger. She has been since the day Claire died. His voice was hard. I've been watching over my shoulder for 3 years waiting for someone to come after us next. At least now I know what I'm fighting. Vanessa didn't know what to say to that. She'd spent her whole life fighting battles on her own terms, in boardrooms, in courtrooms, in conference calls where she dismantled people with numbers and contracts and cold precision. But this was different. This was survival. And survival didn't care about strategy or leverage or who had the most money. Okay, she said finally. So what's the plan? Tomorrow we go into town. You access your files, find the trail, figure out who's behind this. Then we take that information and we bury them. Just like that? Just like that. Vanessa almost laughed. You make it sound easy. It won't be. But it's the only option we've got. Cole stood up and walked to the window, staring out into the darkness. Unless you want to run, disappear, change your name and hope they never find you. That's not an option. Why not? Because I don't run. Cole glanced back at her. Even when you should? Especially then. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. Good, because I don't run either. They stood there in silence, two people who'd been broken by different tragedies but had somehow ended up in the same place. Vanessa didn't know if Cole was trustworthy, didn't know if she was making the biggest mistake of her life by dragging him into this. But she knew one thing. She wasn't alone anymore. And maybe that was enough. The next morning, Cole woke her before dawn. Get dressed. We're leaving in 20. Vanessa sat up, her body aching. What about Lily? She's staying with a neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Lives a mile down the road. She's safe. You're sure? No. But it's safer than bringing her with us. Cole helped Vanessa into the passenger seat of his truck, a battered Ford that looked older than she was. And they drove through the mountains as the sun started to rise. The roads were clear but icy, and Cole drove with the kind of careful precision that came from years of navigating them. The town was small, maybe 500 people. One main street with the post office, a diner, a gas station, and a coffee shop that looked like it had been there since the 70s. Cole parked behind the coffee shop and turned off the engine. Stay in the truck. I'll make sure it's clear first. I'm not sitting here like a damsel in distress. You're sitting here because you can't walk, and if someone spots you, we're both dead. Vanessa wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. She watched him get out, walk around the building, and disappear inside. 5 minutes later, he came back. We're good. Only 3 people inside, and none of them look like hired killers. How do you know what a hired killer looks like? I don't, but I'm guessing they don't usually order pumpkin spice lattes. Vanessa snorted. Cole helped her out of the truck and into the coffee shop. The place smelled like burnt coffee and cinnamon rolls. An older woman behind the counter smiled at them, and Cole ordered 2 coffees while Vanessa set up her laptop at a corner table. She logged into the company's encrypted server and started pulling files. Financial records, offshore accounts, dummy corporations registered in the Caymans, Delaware, Luxembourg. And then she saw it, a pattern. Every single shell company tied to the embezzlement had one thing in common. They were registered under the same law firm, Caldwell and Marsh, based in New York. Vanessa's pulse kicked up. She opened a new tab and searched for Caldwell and Marsh. The firm's website was sleek and professional. Corporate law, real estate, mergers and acquisitions. But when she dug deeper, when she started cross-referencing the firm's client list with the property records Cole had mentioned, she found something that made her blood run cold. Caldwell and Marsh had been buying land in this exact area for the past 5 years, hundreds of acres, all through shell companies, all untraceable. And one of the firm's founding partners was Gregory Marks, her CFO. Vanessa's hands started shaking. Cole. He was at her side instantly. What is it? I found them. She turned the laptop so he could see. My CFO is part of a law firm that's been buying land up here for years, the same land your wife was tracking. Cole's face went pale. You're sure? Positive. Vanessa pulled up more files. Look at this. Every property purchase coincides with a transfer of money from my company to one of these shell corporations. They've been using Sterling Industries to fund whatever they're doing out here. What are they doing? I don't know. But it's big enough that they killed your wife and tried to kill me to keep it quiet. Cole stared at the screen, his jaw tight. We need to call the police. No. Vanessa, listen to me. She grabbed his arm. If we go to the police now, they'll arrest Gregory and maybe a few other people. But the people at the top, the ones actually running this operation, they'll disappear. We'll never find them. So what do you want to do? Vanessa's mind was racing. We find out what they're hiding, we get proof, and then we destroy them. That's insane. Maybe, but it's the only way to make sure they don't get away with it. Cole looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. But sitting here staring at the evidence of a conspiracy that had killed Cole's wife and nearly killed her, Vanessa felt something she hadn't felt in years. Clarity. For the first time since the accident, she knew exactly what she was fighting for. And she wasn't going to stop until she won. Cole drove them back to the cabin in silence. Vanessa could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel hard enough to turn his knuckles white. He hadn't said a word since they left the coffee shop 20 minutes ago. You're angry, Vanessa said. I'm not angry. You look angry. I'm thinking. About what? Cole didn't answer right away. He took a sharp turn onto a dirt road that led deeper into the forest, the truck bouncing over ruts and frozen mud. Finally, he said, about whether you're right. About what? About going after them ourselves instead of calling the cops. Vanessa shifted in her seat, wincing as her ribs protested. You don't think I'm right? I think you're used to fighting battles where the rules protect you. Lawyers, contracts, board meetings. This isn't that. He glanced at her. These people killed my wife and left her in the woods like garbage. They ran you off a mountain and brought a body bag to clean up the mess. You really think they're going to let us walk away just because we have evidence? No, Vanessa said. I think they're going to try to kill us, which is why we need to be smarter than they are. And how do we do that? By figuring out what they're hiding before they figure out we're still alive. Cole exhaled hard through his nose. You make it sound simple. It's not, but it's the only way. They drove the rest of the way in silence. When they reached the cabin, Mrs. Patterson's old sedan was parked out front. Cole killed the engine and sat there for a moment, staring at the steering wheel. If we do this, he said quietly, and something happens to Lily because of it, I'll never forgive myself. Then we make sure nothing happens to her. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to keep her safe. Vanessa looked at him. I'm not asking you to trust me, Cole. I'm asking you to let me help you finish what your wife started. Cole's jaw tightened. Then he nodded once and got out of the truck. Inside, Lily was sitting at the table with Mrs. Patterson, working on a coloring book. The old woman looked up when they walked in and smiled. She's been an angel, Mrs. Patterson said. Didn't give me a bit of trouble. Thanks, Helen. Cole kissed Lily on the top of her head. You okay? I'm bored, Lily said. Mrs. Patterson doesn't have internet. You'll survive. Mrs. Patterson stood up, gathering her coat. I'll leave you folks alone. Call if you need anything. After she left, Lily looked between Cole and Vanessa with suspicious eyes. Where did you go? Town, Cole said. Why? Adult stuff. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Cole pulled out a box of crackers from the cabinet and tossed it to her. Snack, then homework. Lily groaned but took the crackers and went back to her coloring book. Cole walked over to Vanessa and lowered his voice. We need a plan. I know. What do you have in mind? Vanessa pulled out her phone, miraculously still working despite the cracked screen, and opened the photos she'd taken of the laptop files before they left the coffee shop. Caldwell and Marsh owns over 2,000 acres of land in this area. Most of it's concentrated in 3 locations. She zoomed in on a map. Here, here, and here. Cole studied the map. That's all state forest. You can't build on it. Can't even log it without permits. Then what are they using it for? I don't know, but if we're going to find out, we need to go look. Vanessa frowned. You mean physically go to these locations? You have a better idea? Yes. We could access satellite imagery, see if there's anything unusual. Or we could drive out there tonight and see for ourselves? That's insane. So is sitting here waiting for them to find us? Cole crossed his arms. Look, I've lived in these mountains my whole life. I know every back road, every trail, every place someone could hide something they don't want found. If there's something out there, I'll find it. And if they're watching those locations, then we'll be careful. Vanessa wanted to argue, wanted to tell him this was reckless and dangerous and exactly the kind of mistake that got people killed. But she also knew he was right. They couldn't just sit here staring at maps and hoping the answers would appear. Fine, she said, but I'm coming with you. No. Yes. You can barely walk. I don't need to walk. I need to see what's out there. Vanessa held his gaze. You're not doing this without me. Cole looked like he wanted to keep arguing, but something in her expression must have convinced him. He sighed. We leave after dark, and if I tell you to stay in the truck, you stay in the truck. Deal. They waited until after Lily went to bed. Cole spent the time loading gear into the truck. Flashlights, binoculars, a hunting rifle he kept locked in a cabinet near the door. Vanessa watched him work, her stomach knotting with anxiety she refused to show. Have you done this before? she asked. Done what? Stalked criminals through the woods in the middle of the night. Cole paused, then looked at her. Once. What happened? I found an illegal hunting camp, poachers killing deer out of season and selling the meat. I called the rangers and they arrested 3 guys. That's it? What did you expect, a shootout? I don't know, something more dramatic. Cole almost smiled. Real life isn't dramatic. It's messy and boring, and most of the time nothing happens. And the times when something does happen? That's when people die. The words hung in the air between them. Vanessa swallowed hard and nodded. At 11 o'clock they left. Cole drove with the headlights off, navigating by moonlight and memory. The forest pressed in on both sides of the narrow dirt road, branches scraping against the truck's roof. Where are we going? Vanessa asked. The first location on your map. About 10 miles north of here. What's there? Nothing. That's what makes it suspicious. They drove in silence for another 20 minutes. Then Cole pulled off the road into a small clearing and killed the engine. We walk from here, he said. I told you I can't. I know. He got out, walked around to her side, and opened the door. Which is why I'm carrying you. Before Vanessa could protest, he'd lifted her out of the truck and slung her over his shoulder like a sack of flour. She bit back a yelp as her ribs screamed in protest. This is humiliating, she hissed. This is practical. Cole grabbed a flashlight and the rifle, then started walking into the forest. The trees were thick here, the undergrowth tangled with dead branches and frozen vines. Cole moved through it like he'd done this 1,000 times, stepping over obstacles without breaking stride. Vanessa hung on and tried not to think about how much her ribs hurt. After what felt like an eternity, Cole stopped. There. He set Vanessa down carefully on a fallen log and pointed through the trees. Ahead, maybe 200 yards away, she could see lights. Not street lights or house lights, work lights, the kind you'd use on a construction site. What the hell is that? Vanessa whispered. That's what we're here to find out. Cole raised the binoculars and scanned the area. Vanessa watched his face, saw the confusion there, then the recognition, then the anger. Cole, what is it? He handed her the binoculars without a word. Vanessa looked through them and her breath caught. The lights were illuminating a clearing that had been carved out of the forest. And in the center of that clearing was a massive excavation site. Bulldozers, dump trucks, portable generators, and what looked like the entrance to a mine shaft cut directly into the mountainside. They're mining, Vanessa said. Illegally. Cole's voice was hard. This is federal land. You can't mine here without permits and environmental impact studies, and there's no way they got approval for something this big without someone noticing. Unless they paid off the right people, or killed the ones who wouldn't stay quiet. Vanessa felt cold that had nothing to do with the temperature. Your wife found out about this. Yeah, she must have seen the property transfers and started asking questions. Cole's hands were shaking. And they killed her for it. What are they mining? I don't know. Could be anything. Copper, zinc, rare earth minerals. These mountains are full of old mineral deposits. He took the binoculars back. But whatever it is, it's worth enough to murder for. Vanessa's mind was racing. We need to document this. Photos, video, anything that proves what they're doing. Already on it. Cole pulled out his phone and started taking pictures. The camera clicked quietly in the darkness. That's when Vanessa heard the voices. She grabbed Cole's arm. He froze, listening. The voices were getting closer. At least 2 men, maybe more, walking through the forest toward their position. Cole grabbed Vanessa and pulled her down behind the log, pressing himself flat against the ground. She could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. The voices got louder. Flashlight beams cut through the trees. Vanessa held her breath. Supposed to check the perimeter every hour, one of the men was saying. Boss's orders. What's he so worried about? Another voice replied. Nobody comes out here. Yeah, well, tell that to the woman we had to chase off the road last week. Vanessa's blood went cold. You think she's dead? The first man asked. Hope so. Mitchell said he checked the wreckage and didn't find a body, but the ravine's deep. She probably got thrown clear and froze to death somewhere in the woods. What if she didn't? Then we'll find her and finish the job. The men walked past their hiding spot, close enough that Vanessa could have reached out and touched them. She didn't move, didn't breathe, just waited until the voices faded into the distance and the flashlight beams disappeared. Cole waited another full minute before sitting up. "We need to go, now." He lifted Vanessa again, this time cradling her against his chest, and started moving back through the forest as quickly and quietly as he could. Vanessa clung to him, her heart still racing. When they reached the truck, Cole practically threw her into the passenger seat and climbed behind the wheel. He didn't start the engine, just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, breathing hard. "Those men," Vanessa said quietly, "they're the ones who ran me off the road." "Yeah. They're going to keep looking for me." "Yeah. And when they find me, they won't." Cole started the engine and pulled out onto the road. "Because we're not giving them the chance." They drove back to the cabin in tense silence. When they got there, Cole carried Vanessa inside and set her on the bed. Lily was still asleep in the other room, curled up with a stuffed rabbit Cole must have won at some fair years ago. Vanessa watched Cole pace back and forth across the small cabin, his face tight with anger and fear and something else she couldn't name. "We have proof now," she said. "Photos of the mine. Evidence that they're operating illegally. We can take this to the authorities." "And tell them what? That I carried you into the woods and we spied on a criminal operation?" Cole shook his head. "That's trespassing. That's breaking about 6 different laws. Any lawyer worth a damn will get that evidence thrown out in 5 minutes." "Then what do we do?" Cole stopped pacing and looked at her. "We go public. You're a billionaire. You've got a platform. You leak the photos, you tell your story, you make it impossible for them to cover this up. They'll come after me. They're already coming after you." Vanessa knew he was right. She pulled out her phone and stared at the cracked screen. Emma had sent her 17 messages in the past 3 days. So had her lawyer. So had half the board of directors. Everyone wanted to know where she was, if she was okay, when she was coming back. She could call Emma right now, tell her everything, get the photos out to the media before sunrise. But something stopped her. "If I go public," Vanessa said slowly, "they'll know I survived, and they'll come after everyone around me to find out where I am." So that includes you and Lily." Cole's face went hard. "Let them come. Cole, I'm not hiding anymore." His voice was low and dangerous. "I've spent 3 years sitting in this cabin wondering who killed my wife and why. Now I know. And I'm not letting them get away with it. Even if it means putting Lily in danger. Lily's been in danger since the day she was born into this world." Cole knelt down in front of Vanessa. "But at least this way she'll grow up knowing her father fought for something. That he didn't just roll over and let the bad guys win." Vanessa stared at him. This man who'd lost everything and rebuilt his life around his daughter. This man who'd saved her when he had every reason to leave her to die. This man who was ready to go to war with people who killed anyone who got in their way. "Okay," she said. "We go public." "You're sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Cole nodded. He stood up, walked to the stove, and started making coffee. While he worked, Vanessa opened her laptop and started typing. An email to Emma with instructions to prepare a press release. Another email to her lawyer with the photos from tonight attached. A third email to the FBI field office in New York with everything she knew about Caldwell and Marsh and their illegal mining operation. She was about to hit send when her phone rang. The number was blocked. Vanessa stared at it, her finger hovering over the answer button. "Don't," Cole said. "It could be important." "Or it could be them," Vanessa answered anyway. "Hello? Miss Sterling." The voice on the other end was smooth, professional, and terrifying in its calmness. "I'm glad to hear you're still alive." Vanessa's blood turned to ice. "Who is this?" "Someone who's been very worried about you. You disappeared so suddenly. We thought perhaps you'd been in an accident. What do you want?" "To talk. To resolve this situation before it becomes unpleasant for everyone involved." "I'm not interested." "I think you are. Because if you're not, then we'll have to resolve things another way. And trust me, Ms. Sterling, you won't like that outcome." Vanessa's hand was shaking. Cole was at her side now, listening, his face pale. "You're threatening me," Vanessa said. "I'm offering you a choice. Come back to New York. Forget what you think you know. and we'll forget that you've been poking around in things that don't concern you. And if I don't, then we'll be forced to take measures to protect our interests. And those measures will include everyone you care about, your assistant, your employees, that rugged mountain man you've been staying with. The voice paused. His daughter is adorable, by the way. 7 years old, right? Curly dark hair. Goes to Pine Ridge Elementary. Vanessa felt her stomach drop. Cole grabbed the phone from her hand. You touch my daughter and I'll kill you myself, he snarled into the phone. Mr. Bennett. How protective. I admire that. The voice stayed calm. But protection only works when you know where the threat is coming from. And right now, you have no idea who I am or where I'm calling from, which means your daughter is vulnerable, just like Ms. Sterling was vulnerable on that mountain road 3 nights ago. Cole's knuckles were white around the phone. What do you want? I want Ms. Sterling to come to New York, alone, tomorrow night. There's a private airfield outside the city. I'll send the address. If she shows up, we talk. If she doesn't, we start with the little girl. The line went dead. Cole stood there holding the phone, his chest heaving. Then he threw it across the room hard enough to shatter it against the wall. Cole, get Lily. His voice was shaking. Now, we're leaving. Where are we going? I don't know. Somewhere they can't find us. They already found us. Vanessa grabbed his arm. They know who you are. They know where Lily goes to school. Running won't help. Then what do you suggest? I go to New York. I meet them. And I end this. That's suicide. Maybe, but it's the only way to keep Lily safe. Cole stared at her. You don't even know my daughter. No, but I know what it's like to lose everything because someone decided you were in their way. Vanessa's voice was steady. And I'm not letting that happen to her. They'll kill you. Probably, but at least I'll go down fighting. Cole looked at her for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and stared out into the darkness. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. There's another option. What? We kill them first. Vanessa felt her breath catch. What are you talking about? I'm talking about not waiting for them to come to us. I'm talking about finding out who these people are and ending this before they hurt anyone else. That's insane? Yeah, I know. Cole turned to face her. But it's the only way, because if you go to New York, you die. And if we run, they find us. So we fight. How? We use what we know, the mine, the illegal operation, the photos. We find out who's running this and we expose them, publicly, loudly, in a way they can't make disappear. Vanessa's mind was spinning. You're talking about starting a war. I'm talking about finishing one. Cole's eyes were hard. They killed my wife. They tried to kill you. They threatened my daughter. So yeah, I'm ready for war. Vanessa looked at him, really looked at him, at the grief and rage and determination in his face, at the man who'd been broken 3 years ago and had spent every day since then trying to piece himself back together, at the father who had burned the world down to keep his daughter safe. And she realized she wasn't alone anymore. She had an ally. Maybe the most dangerous kind, someone with nothing left to lose. Okay, Vanessa said. Let's go to war. Cole nodded once. Then he walked to the cabinet where he kept the rifle, pulled it down, and started loading ammunition. Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Dad? What's going on? Cole looked at his daughter, then at Vanessa, then back at Lily. Get dressed, sweetheart. We're taking a trip. Where? Somewhere safe. But you said this cabin was safe. I was wrong. Cole knelt down in front of her. But I'm going to fix it, I promise. Lily looked scared, but she nodded. She went back to her room to get dressed. Cole stood up and looked at Vanessa. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind. Then we do this together. Together, Vanessa agreed. And somewhere in the darkness outside the cabin, the people who'd tried to kill them were planning their next move. But this time, they weren't hunting prey. They were walking into a trap. Cole drove them to a hunting lodge 40 miles east that belonged to a friend who only used it during deer season. The place was isolated, accessible only by a logging road that hadn't been maintained in years, and far enough off the grid that nobody would think to look there. They arrived just before dawn. Lily had fallen asleep in the back seat, her head resting against Vanessa's shoulder. Cole carried her inside and laid her on one of the bunks, tucking a blanket around her small body. Vanessa watched him from the doorway, her ribs aching from the rough drive. The tenderness in his movements didn't match the rage she'd seen in his eyes an hour ago. He was two different people, the father who sang his daughter to sleep and the man ready to commit murder to protect her. She understood that duality better than she wanted to admit. "How long do we have?" Vanessa asked when Cole came back out. "Before they find us? A day? Maybe 2 if we're lucky." He walked to the window and peered through the dusty curtains. "Before they hurt someone else? Less than that. Then we move fast. We need more than speed, we need leverage." Cole turned to face her. "Those photos won't be enough. We need names, hard evidence that ties specific people to the mine and to the murders." "I can get names," Vanessa said. "Caldwell and Marsh has to file paperwork for those shell companies. Corporate records, tax documents, wire transfers, everything leaves a trail. Can you access that from here?" "If I can get a strong enough internet connection, yes." Cole pulled out his phone, a burner he'd grabbed from the cabin before they left. "There's a library in Ridgemont about 20 miles south. They've got public computers and Wi-Fi. That's a risk." "Everything's a risk now." He pocketed the phone. "We go at noon when it's crowded. Easier to blend in." Vanessa nodded. She was exhausted, her body screaming for rest, but adrenaline kept her sharp. "What about Lily?" "She stays here, door locked. She knows how to use a phone if something goes wrong." "You're going to leave a 7-year-old alone in the woods?" "She's been alone before." Cole's voice was flat. "She's tougher than you think." Vanessa wanted to argue, but she saw the pain behind his words. This was a kid who'd learned to be brave because her father couldn't always be there to protect her. Because the world had already taken one parent and taught her that safety was a lie people told children to help them sleep. "Okay," Vanessa said. "We do it your way." They spent the next few hours preparing. Cole inventoried their supplies: food, water, ammunition, first aid. Vanessa drafted emails on her phone that she'd send the moment they had internet access. One to Emma, with instructions to freeze all company accounts tied to Gregory Marks. Another to her lawyer authorizing a full forensic audit of Sterling Industries' financial records. A third to a journalist she trusted at the Wall Street Journal with the photos of the illegal mine. If this went wrong, if they didn't make it out, at least someone would know the truth. At 11:30, Cole woke Lily and explained the plan. The kid listened with solemn eyes, nodding when he told her to stay inside, to keep quiet, to call Mrs. Patterson if anyone came to the door. "What if they're bad people?" Lily asked. "Then you hide," Cole said. "There's a crawl space under the floorboards in the back room. You remember where it is?" "Yeah." "Good girl." He kissed her forehead. "We'll be back in 2 hours. 3 at most." "Promise?" Cole hesitated. Vanessa saw the war in his face, the desire to promise his daughter something he couldn't guarantee. Finally, he said, "I'm going to do everything I can to keep that promise." It wasn't the answer Lily wanted, but she was smart enough to understand it was the only honest one. She hugged him tight, then surprised Vanessa by hugging her too. "Be careful," Lily whispered. Vanessa's throat tightened. "We will." The drive to Ridgemont took 30 minutes. Cole parked 2 blocks from the library, and they walked the rest of the way, Cole supporting Vanessa when her legs gave out. She hated needing help, hated how weak her body had become after years of fighting to prove she was strong enough without it. But pride wouldn't keep her alive. So she leaned on him and tried not to think about how much easier this would be if she could just walk on her own. The library was busy, retirees reading newspapers, college students studying for exams, parents with toddlers in the children's section. Cole found them a computer in the back corner where they could see both exits. Vanessa logged into her encrypted email and started pulling files. Corporate records for every shell company tied to Caldwell and Marsh. Property deeds for the land surrounding the mine. Wire transfer receipts showing money flowing from Sterling Industries into offshore accounts. And then she found something that made her blood run cold. "Cole, look at this." He leaned over her shoulder. On the screen was an email chain between Gregory Marks and someone named Vincent Caldwell, one of the founding partners of Caldwell and Marsh. The emails were coded, using vague language about projects and shipments and acquisitions. But one message was different. Sent 6 weeks ago, it read, "The Sterling woman is asking questions. She's seen the offshore accounts. We need to handle this before she digs deeper. Recommend immediate action." Gregory's response was 3 words, "Already in motion." Vanessa felt sick. They planned this. The crash wasn't a panic move. They'd been planning to kill me for weeks. "Keep reading," Cole said, his voice tight. She scrolled down. Another email from 2 years ago, this one between Vincent Caldwell and someone named Marcus Webb. The subject line was county clerk issue. The message read, "Bennett woman won't stop asking about the property transfers. She's filed a formal inquiry with the state. We can't have her talking to federal regulators. Handle it quietly. Make it look like an accident or a disappearance. No body if possible." Marcus Webb's response, "Consider it done." Vanessa looked at Cole. His face had gone white, his hands clenched into fists. "They killed her," he said quietly. "Not because she was a threat. Because she asked questions." "I'm sorry," Vanessa whispered. Cole didn't respond. He just stared at the screen, his jaw working. Then he stood up, walked to the window, and stood there breathing hard. Vanessa kept digging. She found more emails, more evidence, shipments of equipment to the mine, bribes paid to local officials, payments to men with criminal records for security services. And finally, buried in a folder marked Executive Communications, she found the smoking gun. A memo from Vincent Caldwell to the board of Caldwell and Marsh outlining the entire operation. The mine was extracting rare earth minerals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They'd been operating illegally for 4 years, funneling the profits through Sterling Industries to make them look legitimate. Anyone who discovered the operation was eliminated. The memo included a list of names, people who'd been handled. Claire Bennett was third on the list. Vanessa downloaded everything onto a flash drive. Then she sent the emails, all of them, to Emma, to her lawyer, to the journalist, to the FBI. She didn't wait for confirmation, just hit send and logged out. "It's done," she said. Cole turned from the window. His eyes were red, but his voice was steady. "What happens now?" "Now, we wait for them to panic." Vanessa stood up, using the desk for support. "Once those emails go public, Caldwell and Marsh is finished. The FBI will raid the mine. The media will destroy them. They'll have nowhere to hide. Unless they kill us first. They'll try, but they're running out of time." They left the library and headed back to the truck. Halfway there, Cole's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, looked at the screen, and his face went pale. "What is it?" Vanessa asked. "Text from Mrs. Patterson." His voice was shaking. "She went to check on Lily. The lodge is empty. Lily's gone." Vanessa felt the world tilt. "What?" "She's gone." Cole was already running, his phone pressed to his ear. "Helen, it's me." "Are you sure? Did you check the crawl space?" A pause. "What do you mean there's blood?" He stopped running, just stood there in the middle of the sidewalk, the phone falling from his hand. Vanessa caught up to him. "Cole, talk to me." "There's blood on the floor." His voice was hollow. "And a note." "What does it say?" Cole looked at her, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Not anger, not grief. Something worse. Terror. "It says if we want her back, you need to come to New York tonight, alone." Vanessa's stomach dropped. "They took her." "Yeah." "How did they find us?" "I don't know. I don't care." Cole picked up his phone. "I'm calling the police." "No." "Vanessa, if you call the police, they'll kill her." Vanessa grabbed his arm. "These people don't leave witnesses. They don't negotiate. The only reason Lily's still alive is because they need her as leverage to get to me." "Then what do we do?" "We give them what they want." Vanessa's mind was racing. "I go to New York, I meet them, and while they're focused on me, you find Lily." "That's insane. It's the only option we have." Cole stared at her. "You're asking me to let you walk into a death trap. I'm asking you to save your daughter." Vanessa's voice was firm. "You can't do both, Cole. You can't fight them and protect Lily at the same time. So you choose her, and I'll handle the rest." "They'll kill you." "Maybe. But I'm buying you time. Use it. Cole looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he closed his eyes and took a long, shaking breath. When he opened them again, the terror was gone. In its place was cold, calculating fury. "Okay," he said, "but we do this my way." "What's your way?" "You go to New York, you let them think they've won, and while they're distracted, I'm going to burn their whole operation to the ground." They drove back toward the lodge to regroup. On the way, Cole made 3 phone calls. The first was to a man named Danny, who owed him a favor from years ago. The second was to a woman named Sarah, who ran a private security firm out of Albany. The third was to someone he called Reyes, who didn't say much but promised to be ready. Vanessa didn't ask who these people were. She just listened to Cole put together a plan that sounded half brilliant and half suicidal. When they reached the lodge, Mrs. Patterson was waiting outside, her face pale. "I'm so sorry, Cole. I came to check on her like you asked." And the door was open and there was... "It's okay, Helen." Cole's voice was gentle but strained. "This isn't your fault. There's blood in the back room. Not a lot, but enough." Cole pushed past her into the lodge. Vanessa followed. The blood was on the floor near the crawlspace entrance, smeared like someone had dragged Lily out. The note was pinned to the wall with a hunting knife. Cole read it, his hands shaking. Then he tore it down and handed it to Vanessa. The note was typed, cold and efficient. "Ms. Sterling, you have until midnight tonight to arrive at the private airfield outside Newark. Come alone. No police, no FBI. If you comply, the child lives. If you don't, we send her back to her father in pieces. The address is below. Don't be late." Vanessa felt fury rise in her chest, white-hot and consuming. These people had tried to kill her. They'd murdered Cole's wife, and now they'd kidnapped a 7-year-old girl to use as bait. She was done running, done being afraid. "What time is it?" she asked. Cole checked his watch. 4:30. "Then we have 7.5 hours. Vanessa looked at him. "Get me to New York." "Vanessa, I'm not arguing about this. Get me on a plane. Get me to that airfield, and then you find your daughter and you get her out." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure they regret ever coming after us." Cole stared at her. Then he nodded. "Okay, but you're not going in unarmed." "I don't know how to shoot." "You don't need to shoot. You just need to record." He pulled out his phone and handed it to her. "This phone's clean. No way to trace it back to us. It's got a recording app. You get them talking. You get them to confess. And you send that recording to every news outlet in the country. And if they search me, they will. Which is why you're going to hide the phone somewhere they won't look." Cole paused. "Can you do that?" Vanessa thought about it. "Yeah, I can do that." "Good." Cole walked to the door. "We leave in 10 minutes. Grab whatever you need." While Cole loaded the truck, Vanessa sat down and composed one final email. This one to Emma, with instructions to execute if she didn't make contact within 24 hours. Instructions to release everything. The photos, the emails, the financial records, all of it. Instructions to make sure the world knew what happened. She hit send and closed the laptop. Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway. "You're going after her, aren't you?" "Yes." "Those men are dangerous." "So am I." Mrs. Patterson studied her for a long moment. Then she walked over and pressed something into Vanessa's hand. A small pocket knife with a worn wooden handle. "My husband carried this in Vietnam," the old woman said. "Brought him home safe. Maybe it'll do the same for you." Vanessa's throat tightened. "Thank you." "Bring that little girl home." "I will." The flight to New York took 3 hours. Cole had called in another favor from a man who owned a small charter service and didn't ask questions. They landed at a private airstrip in New Jersey just after 9 o'clock. Cole drove Vanessa to a hotel near the Newark airfield and pulled into the parking lot. He killed the engine and sat there, staring at the steering wheel. "This is a bad idea," he said. "I know. You could die." "I know that too." Cole turned to look at her. "Why are you doing this?" "Because your daughter shouldn't have to grow up without a father the way I grew up without one." Vanessa's voice was quiet. "Because you saved my life when you didn't have to. And because I'm tired of letting bad people win." Cole reached over and took her hand. His palm was rough and calloused and warm. "If you don't make it out, I will." "If you don't," he repeated, "I want you to know you're the bravest person I've ever met." Vanessa laughed, a short, bitter sound. "I'm terrified." "That's what makes you brave." He helped her out of the truck and into the hotel lobby. They got a room on the first floor, easier access for someone in a wheelchair, and Cole carried her inside. He set her on the bed and knelt down in front of her. "The airfield is 10 minutes from here. You go in at midnight like they asked. I'll be watching from the perimeter. If anything goes wrong, if you need help, you signal me. 3 flashes from your phone. And then what? And then I come in and we fight our way out." "That's not a plan. That's a suicide pact." Cole almost smiled. "Yeah, but it's the best we've got." He stood up and walked to the door. Then he stopped and looked back at her. "Vanessa." "Yeah?" "My wife died because I wasn't fast enough to save her. I won't let that happen to you." "You don't owe me anything, Cole." "Yeah, I do." He left. Vanessa sat on the bed alone, listening to the sound of traffic outside the window. Her ribs ached, her head throbbed, and she was about to walk into a trap that would probably get her killed. But for the first time in 6 years, she wasn't doing it alone. She had someone fighting beside her. Someone who believed she was brave even when she didn't believe it herself. That had to count for something. At 11:30, she called an Uber. The driver was a young guy who talked the entire ride about his dreams of opening a restaurant someday. Vanessa barely heard him. She was too busy running through scenarios in her head, trying to figure out how to stay alive long enough to matter. The airfield was deserted when they arrived. Just a single runway, a few hangars, and a small office building that looked abandoned. The Uber driver looked nervous. "You sure this is the right place?" he asked. "Yeah, thanks for the ride." She got out and watched him drive away. Then she was alone in the darkness with nothing but the distant hum of the highway and the cold wind cutting through her coat. A black SUV pulled up 30 seconds later. 2 men got out, both wearing suits, both looking like they'd been doing this kind of work for a long time. "Ms. Sterling," one of them said, "we need to search you." "Go ahead." They patted her down roughly, checking for weapons, wires, anything that could be used against them. They found Mrs. Patterson's knife and tossed it aside. They found her phone and smashed it under their boot. But they didn't find the second phone Cole had given her, the one she'd hidden in a place they'd never think to look. "She's clean," the first man said. The second man grabbed Vanessa's wheelchair from the back of the SUV and set it beside her. "Get in." She did. They pushed her across the tarmac toward one of the hangars. The door was open. Inside, a small private jet was waiting, engines already running, and standing at the base of the stairs was Gregory Marks. He smiled when he saw her. "Vanessa, I'm so glad you could make it." "Where's the girl?" "Safe. For now." Gregory walked down the stairs and crouched in front of her wheelchair. "I want you to understand something. This didn't have to happen. If you just stayed in your lane, if you just accepted that some things are bigger than you, none of this would have been necessary. You tried to kill me. I tried to protect an operation worth $500 million. You were collateral damage." He stood up. "But now you're here, and we're going to have a conversation about what happens next." "What happens next is you go to prison." Gregory laughed. "You still don't get it, do you? There is no prison for people like me. We own the prisons. We own the judges. We own the system." "Not anymore." Vanessa met his eyes. "I sent everything to the FBI 3 hours ago. The emails, the financial records, the photos of your illegal mine. By morning, you'll be the most wanted man in America." Gregory's smile faltered. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" He pulled out his phone and made a call. Someone answered. Gregory listened, his face going pale. Then he hung up and looked at Vanessa with something close to admiration. "You really did it," he said. "You actually sent everything." "Yeah." "Then I guess we don't have much to talk about after all." He nodded to the 2 men. "Put her on the plane. We're leaving." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere without extradition treaties. Somewhere you'll never be found." Gregory started walking toward the jet. "It's a shame, really. You could have been great if you'd just learned when to quit." They pushed Vanessa's wheelchair up the ramp into the plane. The interior was sleek and expensive. Leather seats, polished wood, the kind of luxury that only came from stolen money. But Vanessa wasn't looking at the luxury. She was looking at the small figure huddled in one of the back seats. Lily. The kid's face was bruised. Her hands were tied. But she was alive. Lily! Vanessa tried to move toward her, but one of the men shoved her back. Sit down and shut up, he growled. Gregory climbed aboard and settled into one of the front seats. Take off as soon as we're ready. The pilots nodded and disappeared into the cockpit. The engines roared louder. The doors started to close. And Vanessa realized she had maybe 60 seconds before they were airborne and everything was lost. She reached into her bra and pulled out the phone Cole had given her. Her fingers were shaking, but she managed to open the recording app and hit start. Then she looked at Gregory and said loudly, "Before we die, I want to know why you killed Claire Bennett." Gregory looked at her, surprised. What? Claire Bennett. The woman who worked at the county clerk's office. The one who found out about your land purchases. You had her murdered. I didn't kill anyone. No, but you ordered it. Vanessa's voice was steady now. Just like you ordered Marcus Webb to kill me. Just like you kidnapped a 7-year-old girl to cover your tracks. I want to hear you say it. Gregory stared at her, then he laughed. Why? You think you're wearing a wire? We searched you. I don't need a wire. I just need the truth. Fine. You want the truth? Gregory leaned forward. Claire Bennett was a problem. She wouldn't stop asking questions, so we made her disappear. Marcus did it quietly, made it look random, and for 3 years, nobody cared. Until I started asking questions. Until you stuck your nose where it didn't belong. So yeah, I ordered Marcus to run you off that road. I ordered him to bring a body bag. And if you just died like you were supposed to, none of this would be happening. Vanessa felt a cold satisfaction settle in her chest. And Lily? Insurance, in case you got brave. Gregory shrugged. Don't worry, once we're in the air, we'll toss her out somewhere over the ocean. No body, no evidence. Vanessa heard Lily whimper in the back seat. She wanted to scream, wanted to tear Gregory apart with her bare hands. Instead, she smiled. Thanks for the confession. Gregory frowned. What? Vanessa held up the phone. You just admitted to murder and kidnapping on tape, and in about 3 seconds, that recording's going to the FBI, the media, and every law enforcement agency in the country. Gregory's face went white. He lunged for the phone, but Vanessa threw it hard toward the open cabin door just as one of the men tried to close it. The phone skittered across the tarmac, and out of the darkness, Cole appeared. He picked up the phone, looked at the recording, and smiled. Then all hell broke loose. Cole didn't wait for them to react. He was already moving, the recording uploading to 3 different servers as he sprinted toward the plane. Behind him, 6 figures emerged from the shadows near the hangar. Danny and his crew, armed and ready. The 2 men guarding Vanessa went for their weapons, but they were too slow. Cole hit the first one with the butt of his rifle, dropping him before he could draw. The second man got his gun out, but Danny put 2 rounds in his chest, and he went down hard. Gregory scrambled toward the cockpit, screaming at the pilots to take off. The engines roared. The plane started rolling forward. Cole grabbed the edge of the door and hauled himself inside just as the jet picked up speed. He stumbled into the cabin and saw Vanessa struggling to get out of her wheelchair, saw Lily tied up in the back, saw Gregory pulling a pistol from inside his jacket. "Don't move!" Gregory shouted, aiming the gun at Lily's head. Cole froze. "Put the rifle down," Gregory said. His hand was shaking, but his voice was steady. "Put it down or I shoot the kid." Cole lowered the rifle slowly. "You don't want to do this." "I don't have a choice. You just ruined everything." Gregory's face was pale, sweat running down his temples. 4 years of work, $500 million. And you destroyed it in one night. "Good," Cole said. "Shut up." Gregory pressed the gun against Lily's head. The kid whimpered but didn't cry. Cole felt his heart breaking. "We're taking off. You're getting off this plane, and we're disappearing. That's how this ends." "No," Vanessa said. Gregory looked at her. "What?" "That's not how this ends." Vanessa had pulled herself to her feet, using the seats for support. Her legs were shaking, but she stood. "This ends with you in a prison cell for the rest of your life." This ends with everyone knowing what you did." "I'll kill her?" Gregory's voice cracked. "I swear I'll kill this kid." "No, you won't." Vanessa took a step forward. "Because if you do, you've got nothing. No leverage, no way out. The FBI's already on their way. The recording's already public. Your only chance of survival is to put the gun down and surrender." "She's right," Cole said quietly. "It's over, Marks." Gregory stared between them, the gun trembling in his hand. The plane was picking up speed now, racing down the runway. In maybe 30 seconds they'd be airborne. Then Gregory did something none of them expected. He turned the gun on Vanessa and fired. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Cole saw Vanessa drop, and he moved without thinking, tackling Gregory to the floor. They struggled for the gun, rolling across the cabin as the plane lifted off the ground. Vanessa was on the floor, blood spreading across her shoulder. She'd been hit, but she was still conscious, still breathing. Lily was screaming. The plane was climbing. Cole got his hand on Gregory's wrist and slammed it against the floor once, twice, 3 times until the gun skittered away. Gregory punched him in the ribs, and Cole felt something crack, but he didn't let go. He drove his fist into Gregory's face, once, twice, until the man went limp beneath him. Then Cole grabbed the gun and stood up, breathing hard. The pilots were shouting from the cockpit, trying to figure out what was happening. Cole ignored them. He stumbled over to Vanessa and knelt beside her. "How bad?" he asked. "Shoulder. Went through." Her face was white, but her eyes were focused. "I'm okay." "You're not okay." "I'm alive. That's close enough." Vanessa grabbed his arm. "Lily." Cole turned. His daughter was still tied to the seat, tears streaming down her face. He ran to her, cut the ropes with Mrs. Patterson's knife that one of the men had dropped, and pulled her into his arms. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you, sweetheart. You're safe." Lily clung to him, sobbing into his chest. Cole held her tight and tried not to fall apart. The plane leveled off. They were maybe 500 feet in the air now, climbing over the New Jersey marshlands. Cole carried Lily to the front of the cabin and kicked open the cockpit door. "Land this plane," he said. The pilots looked at the rifle in his hand and didn't argue. One of them radioed the tower. "Newark Tower, this is November 7-2 Bravo declaring an emergency. We need immediate clearance to return." The response came back within seconds. "November 7-2 Bravo, you are cleared for emergency landing. Runway 22 left. Emergency services standing by." The plane banked hard and started descending. Cole went back to Vanessa and helped her sit up. The bullet had gone clean through her shoulder, painful, but not fatal. He used his shirt to compress the wound. "You're going to be fine," he said. "I know." Vanessa smiled weakly. "I'm harder to kill than I look." "Yeah, I noticed." Gregory was starting to wake up. Cole zip-tied his hands behind his back and left him on the floor. Let him lie there and think about what came next. The plane landed rough, tires screeching against the runway. The moment they stopped, federal agents swarmed the aircraft. Cole saw the flashing lights through the windows. Police, FBI, ambulances. They came aboard with weapons drawn, but lowered them when they saw Gregory tied up and bleeding. An EMT rushed to Vanessa while another checked Lily for injuries. Cole stood there holding his daughter, watching it all happen around him like he was seeing it through glass. "Sir, are you injured?" one of the agents asked. Cole shook his head. He couldn't speak. If he spoke, he'd fall apart. They took Vanessa and Lily to the hospital. Cole rode with them in the ambulance, sitting between the 2 gurneys and holding both their hands. Vanessa was drifting in and out of consciousness from the pain meds they'd given her. Lily was awake but quiet, staring at the ceiling. "Dad?" she said softly. "Yeah, baby?" "Are the bad people gone?" Cole felt his throat tighten. "Yeah. They're gone. Forever? Forever." Lily closed her eyes. "Good." At the hospital, they stitched Vanessa's shoulder and gave her antibiotics and more pain medication. The doctors checked Lily for injuries. She had bruises on her wrists from the ropes and a black eye from when they'd grabbed her, but nothing broken. They wanted to keep her overnight for observation. Cole refused to leave her side. He sat in a chair next to her bed while she slept, watching her breathe, trying to convince himself she was really safe. That this was really over. Around 3 in the morning, an FBI agent named Rodriguez came to take his statement. Cole told him everything: the crash, the cabin, the mine, the recording. Rodriguez listened without interrupting, taking notes. "The recording you uploaded is already trending online," Rodriguez said. "Gregory Marks confessing to murder and kidnapping. It's been viewed 7 million times in the last 4 hours." "Good. We've arrested 6 people so far. Vincent Caldwell, Marcus Webb, 3 others tied to the mining operation. We're still tracking down the rest." "What about the mine itself?" "Shut down. We've got a team up there now, securing the site." Rodriguez closed his notebook. "You did good work, Mr. Bennett. Most people would have run." "I'm not most people." "No, you're not." Rodriguez stood up. "Get some rest. We'll need more statements tomorrow, but for now, just be with your daughter." After he left, Cole sat there in the dark hospital room listening to Lily breathe. He thought about Claire, about how she'd died trying to expose the same people he'd just helped destroy, about how she'd never know that her death hadn't been meaningless, that it had led to this. He hoped she'd be proud. A nurse knocked softly on the door. "Mr. Bennett, Miss Sterling is awake. She's asking for you." Cole looked at Lily. She was deep asleep, safe, guarded by 2 officers outside the door. He kissed her forehead and followed the nurse down the hall. Vanessa's room was 2 floors up. She was propped up in bed, her shoulder heavily bandaged, looking exhausted but alert. When she saw Cole, she smiled. "Hey." "Hey." Cole pulled up a chair. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got shot." She shifted slightly and winced. "But alive, that's something." "Yeah, it is." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside the window, the sun was starting to rise over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Emma called," Vanessa said. "The story's everywhere. CNN, Fox, every major outlet. They're calling it the biggest corporate scandal in a decade." "Good." Sterling Industries stock dropped 40% overnight. The board's in chaos. "I'll probably spend the next year cleaning up the mess." "Sounds awful." "It does, doesn't it?" Vanessa looked at him. "But I'm not going back." Cole frowned. "What?" "I'm stepping down. Temporarily, maybe permanently. I haven't decided yet." She paused. "I spent 6 years running that company like it was the only thing keeping me alive. Turns out, it was the thing killing me." "What will you do instead?" "I don't know. Rest, recover, figure out who I am when I'm not fighting everyone around me." Vanessa smiled. "Maybe spend some time in the mountains." Cole felt something warm spread through his chest. "You hate the mountains." "I hated being hunted in the mountains. That's different." "Still." "Cole." Vanessa reached out and took his hand. "You saved my life. Twice. You could have left me in that ravine. You could have sent me away when I became a problem. But you didn't. You fought beside me. You believed I was worth saving, even when I wasn't sure I believed it myself." Cole's throat was tight. "You saved Lily's life. We saved each other." Vanessa squeezed his hand. "So I'm asking you, when I get out of here, when this is all over, can I come visit? You and Lily?" "Yeah," Cole said. "Yeah, you can." "Good." They sat there holding hands while the sun rose over New York, 2 people who'd been broken by different tragedies but had somehow found their way to each other. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale. But it was real. And that was enough. 3 months later, Vanessa stood on the porch of Cole's cabin, watching Lily chase a butterfly through the tall grass near the tree line. Her shoulder still ached when it rained, but the scar was healing clean. The doctors said she'd regain full mobility within a year. She'd left her wheelchair in New York. Not because she didn't need it, some days she still did, but because up here, in the mountains, she'd learned to move differently. Slower. Carefully. Without the constant pressure to prove she could do everything alone. Cole came out of the cabin carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He handed her one and leaned against the railing beside her. "She's getting faster," Vanessa said, nodding toward Lily. "Yeah, kids do that." "She seems happy." "She is." Cole sipped his coffee. "Therapy's helping. She still has nightmares sometimes, but they're getting less frequent." "Good." They stood in comfortable silence. In the distance, mountains stretched toward the horizon, covered in trees that were just starting to turn gold with the first hint of autumn. Gregory Marks got 40 years, Cole said. Vincent Caldwell got 30. Marcus Webb took a plea deal and testified against everyone else. I heard. Claire's case was officially reopened. They're ruling her death a homicide now, finally. Vanessa glanced at him. How do you feel about that? I don't know. Cole stared out at the mountains. I wanted answers for so long, wanted someone to pay for what they did to her. And now they are. But it doesn't bring her back. Doesn't change anything. It changes something, Vanessa said. It means she mattered, that her death wasn't swept under the rug, that someone cared enough to fight for her. Cole looked at her. Yeah, I guess it does. Lily came running back, breathless and grinning. I almost caught it. Almost doesn't count, Cole said, but he was smiling. Can Vanessa and I go to the lake? If Vanessa wants to. Vanessa looked at the kid's hopeful face and felt something warm settle in her chest. Yeah, let's go. They walked down to the lake, Lily chattering the whole way about school and her friends and a book she was reading about dragons. Vanessa listened and responded and tried not to think about all the years she'd spent alone in her Manhattan penthouse, convinced that connection was weakness. She'd been wrong about so many things. At the lake, Lily waded into the shallow water while Vanessa sat on a fallen log nearby. Cole had stayed at the cabin to fix something on the roof. It was just the two of them and the sound of water lapping against the shore. Vanessa? Lily said after a while. Yeah? Are you going to stay here? Vanessa hesitated. I don't know. Why? Because I like it when you're here. Dad's less grumpy. Vanessa laughed. Your dad's always grumpy. Yeah, but it's different now, like he's grumpy on purpose instead of because he's sad. Out of the mouths of children, Vanessa thought. Do you want me to stay? Lily thought about it seriously. Yeah, I think I do. Can I ask you something? Okay. Are you still scared about what happened? Lily picked up a smooth stone and turned it over in her hand. Sometimes. I have bad dreams about the men who took me. But then I wake up and Dad's there and I remember they can't hurt me anymore. You're very brave. Dad says being brave means being scared but doing it anyway. Your dad's a smart man. Lily grinned. Don't tell him that. He'll get a big head. Vanessa smiled. This kid had been through hell and she was still standing, still laughing, still finding joy in butterflies and lakes and smooth stones. If that wasn't strength, Vanessa didn't know what was. That evening, they ate dinner on the porch. Grilled fish Cole had caught that morning, vegetables from Mrs. Patterson's garden. Bread Lily had helped bake. It was simple food, but it tasted better than anything Vanessa had eaten in Manhattan's finest restaurants. After Lily went to bed, Cole and Vanessa sat on the porch steps watching the stars come out. I sold my apartment, Vanessa said. Cole looked at her. In New York? Yeah, and I'm liquidating most of my assets. Keeping enough to live on, but giving the rest away. Scholarships, mostly, for disabled kids who want to go into business. That's good. It feels right. Vanessa paused. I spent so long trying to prove I was strong enough to survive anything. But strength isn't about surviving alone. It's about knowing when to ask for help, when to let people in. Took you a while to figure that out. Took me almost dying to figure that out. She looked at him. What about you? What are you going to do now? Cole was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I thought about leaving, taking Lily somewhere far away where nobody knows what happened, starting over. But I realized we don't need to run. This is our home. These mountains, this cabin, these people. Running won't change what happened. It won't bring Claire back. And it won't make Lily safer. So we're staying. Good. What about you? Cole asked. You figure out what you're doing yet? Not entirely, but I think I'm going to stay here for a while. If that's okay with you. Cole smiled. Yeah, that's okay with me. They sat there in the darkness, shoulders touching, watching the stars wheel overhead. Somewhere in the forest an owl called. The wind rustled through the trees. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Vanessa felt something she'd forgotten existed. Peace. Not the absence of struggle, not the end of pain, but the quiet certainty that she wasn't fighting alone anymore, that she'd found people worth fighting for, that she belonged somewhere other than a boardroom or a tower or the cold, empty spaces she'd built around herself. The weeks turned into months. Vanessa rented a small house in town and started consulting for nonprofits, using her business expertise to help organizations that actually mattered, instead of making rich people richer. She had lunch with Emma once a week over video chat, keeping tabs on Sterling Industries but letting someone else handle the daily chaos. She spent her evenings at Cole's cabin. Sometimes they cooked dinner together. Sometimes they just sat on the porch and talked. Sometimes Lily dragged them both into some elaborate game she'd invented that made no sense but was fun anyway. Slowly, carefully, they built something new. It wasn't romance, not yet, maybe never. Neither of them was ready for that. They were still healing, still figuring out who they were without the weight of their old lives crushing them. But it was connection. Real, honest connection between two people who'd seen each other at their worst and decided they were worth knowing anyway. One Saturday afternoon in late October, Vanessa was helping Lily with her homework at the kitchen table when Cole came in from outside covered in sawdust. "I finished it," he said. "Finished what?" Vanessa asked. "Come see." They followed him outside to the back of the cabin where he'd been working on something for weeks. There, in the clearing near the tree line, was a wooden ramp leading up to a new deck he'd built onto the back of the cabin. The ramp was smooth and wide and perfectly angled. "It's for your wheelchair," Cole said, "so you don't have to struggle with the stairs when you need it." Vanessa stared at him. "You built this for me?" "Yeah." "Cole, I... Her voice broke. "Thank you." "You're welcome." Lily grabbed Vanessa's hand. "Can we try it?" They went back inside to get the wheelchair. Vanessa kept one at Cole's place now for the days when her legs didn't cooperate, and Lily insisted on pushing her up the ramp. It rolled smoothly, perfectly balanced. At the top, the new deck opened up to a view of the mountains that took Vanessa's breath away. "I thought you could use it when you work," Cole said. "Good view, fresh air. Better than being cooped up inside." Vanessa looked at him and felt something shift in her chest. This man who'd spent 3 years alone, who'd been broken by grief, who'd learned to survive by keeping everyone at a distance. He'd built her a ramp, not because she asked, not because he had to, but because he wanted her to feel like she belonged. "I love it," she said quietly. Cole smiled. "Good." That night, after Lily went to bed, Vanessa and Cole sat on the new deck wrapped in blankets against the cold. The stars were brilliant overhead, sharp and clear in the mountain air. "Can I ask you something?" Vanessa said. "Sure." "Do you think Claire would be okay with this? With me being here?" Cole was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I think Claire would want me to be happy, and I think she'd like you." "Yeah?" "Yeah. You're stubborn and fierce and you don't take crap from anyone. She was the same way." He paused. "And I think she'd be glad Lily has someone else who cares about her. Someone strong who'll teach her that being disabled doesn't mean being weak." Vanessa's eyes stung. "I hope so. I know so." They sat in silence, wrapped in blankets and starlight, two broken people who'd found their way to something that resembled healing. It wasn't perfect. Some days Vanessa still woke up panicking, convinced someone was coming to hurt her. Some nights Cole still had nightmares about finding Claire's body. Lily still flinched when cars backfired or men in suits walked too close. But they had each other, and they had this, a small patch of earth in the mountains where they could be honest about their scars instead of pretending they didn't exist. That was more than most people ever got. As the months passed, something strange happened. Vanessa stopped thinking of New York as home, stopped missing the boardrooms and the power lunches and the constant noise. She'd spent so long believing that success meant having more money, more control, more proof that she was strong enough to survive anything. But up here, in the mountains, with Cole and Lily and the quiet rhythm of days that weren't measured by quarterly earnings or stock prices, she learned something different. Success wasn't about surviving. It was about living, really living, not just going through the motions. It was about letting people see you when you were weak, about asking for help, about building something real instead of building walls. It was about knowing that strength came not from standing alone, but from having people beside you when you fell. One spring afternoon, nearly a year after the night at the airfield, Vanessa and Cole took Lily fishing at the lake. The kid had gotten good at casting, her line arcing out over the water with surprising accuracy. "I got one!" Lily shouted, her rod bending. Cole helped her reel it in, a decent-sized trout that fought hard before they landed it. Lily was grinning so wide her face looked like it might split. "Can we keep it for dinner?" "Yeah," Cole said. "We can keep it." They cleaned the fish and brought it back to the cabin. While Cole cooked, Vanessa sat on the deck with Lily, teaching her how to play chess on a battered set Cole had found at a yard sale. "Vanessa?" Lily said, studying the board. "Yeah? Are you happy?" The question caught Vanessa off guard. "Yeah, I think I am. Why?" "Because you smile more now. When you first came here, you looked sad all the time." Vanessa thought about that. "I was sad, but I'm better now." "Because of us?" "Because of a lot of things. But yeah, you and your dad helped." Lily moved her knight and looked up. "I'm glad you didn't die in that car." Vanessa's throat tightened. "Me too, kiddo." They finished the game. Lily won because Vanessa was still learning, and then went inside for dinner. The trout was perfect, flaky and tender. They ate together at the small table, talking and laughing, and Vanessa realized this was what she'd been missing all those years in Manhattan. Not power, not control, not the ability to destroy her enemies with a single phone call. Just this: connection, family, people who cared about her not because of what she could do for them, but because of who she was. It was simple, it was ordinary, and it was the most valuable thing she'd ever found. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Vanessa and Cole walked down to the lake. The moon was full, reflected on the water like a silver coin. "I've been thinking," Vanessa said. "About what?" "About staying, not just visiting, actually staying." Cole looked at her. "Here?" "Yeah, I mean, I'd get my own place, obviously. I'm not suggesting we—" She stopped, suddenly nervous. "I just mean I want to stay in the area. Be close, if that's okay." Cole smiled. "It's more than okay." "Yeah?" "Yeah." He reached out and took her hand. "You're part of this now. Part of us. And I don't want you to leave." Vanessa felt warmth spread through her chest. "I don't want to leave either." They stood there holding hands in the moonlight. Two people who'd survived things that should have destroyed them. Who'd learned that healing wasn't about becoming who you were before the trauma. It was about becoming someone new. Someone who carried their scars but wasn't defined by them. Someone who understood that being saved didn't make you weak. It made you human. And being human, messy and flawed and vulnerable, was the bravest thing either of them had ever done. 6 months later, Vanessa bought a house 3 miles from Cole's cabin. It was small but comfortable, with a view of the mountains and enough space for her to work. She set up an office and started consulting full-time, helping nonprofits and small businesses instead of billionaires. She didn't miss the money, didn't miss the power, didn't miss the cold, empty penthouse or the endless meetings or the people who smiled while plotting her destruction. She had something better now. She had mornings spent drinking coffee on her porch, afternoons helping Lily with homework, evenings at Cole's cabin cooking dinner and arguing good-naturedly about everything from politics to whether pineapple belonged on pizza. She had people who knew her scars and loved her anyway. People who understood that some days were hard and didn't expect her to pretend otherwise. People who'd fought beside her and knew exactly what she was capable of. And she had Cole, steady, stubborn, broken but healing Cole, who looked at her like she was worth the trouble of knowing. Who built her ramps and cooked her dinner and sat with her on bad days without trying to fix her because he understood that some things couldn't be fixed, only survived. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It wasn't the fairy tale ending where everything magically became perfect, but it was real, and it was hers, and that was more than enough. One evening in early autumn, as the three of them sat on Cole's porch watching the sun set behind the mountains, Lily asked a question that had been building for months. "Are you two going to get married?" Cole choked on his coffee. Vanessa laughed so hard she nearly fell out of her chair. "What?" Lily looked between them, confused. You like each other. You're together all the time. That's what married people do. We're not dating, Vanessa managed to say. Why not? Because… Vanessa looked at Cole helplessly. Because we're figuring things out, Cole said carefully. Taking it slow. You've been taking it slow for a year and a half. Kid's got a point, Vanessa said. Cole glared at her. Not helping. Lily crossed her arms. I think you should date. I like Vanessa, and you're nicer when she's around. I'm always nice. No, you're not. You're grumpy. I'm not… Cole stopped, looked at Vanessa. Am I grumpy? Extremely. He sighed. Fine. I'm grumpy. But less grumpy when Vanessa's here, Lily pressed. Yeah, less grumpy. Lily grinned triumphantly. So date her. After Lily went inside, Cole and Vanessa sat in awkward silence for a full minute before Vanessa started laughing again. She's not wrong, Vanessa said. About me being grumpy? About us? Vanessa looked at him. We've been circling this for a year and a half. Maybe it's time we stopped pretending we're just friends. Cole was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I am either. Vanessa reached over and took his hand. But maybe we don't need to be ready. Maybe we just need to try. Cole looked at their joined hands. What if I mess it up? Then we'll figure it out. That's what we do. She smiled. We survive. Yeah. Cole smiled back. We do. He leaned over and kissed her, gentle and tentative and terrified. Vanessa kissed him back, her heart pounding, and thought about how strange it was that the worst night of her life had led to this, to a cabin in the mountains, to a man who understood trauma because he carried his own, to a little girl who'd decided Vanessa was family, whether she liked it or not, to a life that wasn't about winning or losing or being stronger than everyone else, just about being human, being real, being loved. When they pulled apart, Cole was smiling. Lily's going to be insufferable about this. Yeah, Vanessa agreed. She is. Worth it, though. Yeah, it is. They sat there on the porch holding hands while the stars came out overhead. Two people who'd been broken by different tragedies but had somehow found their way to each other. Who'd learned that survival wasn't the same as living, that strength wasn't about standing alone, that healing didn't mean forgetting the past, it meant building a future despite it. It wasn't perfect. Some days were still hard. Some nights Vanessa still woke up shaking from nightmares about the crash. Some mornings Cole still stared at Claire's picture and felt the weight of loss settle on his chest. But they had each other now. And they had Lily. And they had this small patch of earth where they'd learned to stop running from their scars and start building something worth keeping. That was the thing Vanessa had finally understood after 30 years of fighting everyone around her. Power couldn't keep you safe. Money couldn't fill the empty spaces. Success couldn't protect you from the things that really mattered. Only people could do that. Real, flawed, complicated people who chose to stay even when things got hard, who built you ramps when you couldn't climb stairs, who fought beside you when the world tried to break you, who loved you not despite your scars, but because they understood that scars were proof you'd survived something worth surviving. And if that wasn't worth more than $1 billion empire, Vanessa didn't know what was. Years later, when people asked her about that winter when everything changed, Vanessa would tell them the truth. She'd tell them about the night she crashed through a guardrail and thought she'd die alone in the snow, about the man who saved her when he had every reason not to, about the fight to expose corruption that nearly cost them everything, about a 7-year-old girl who taught her that being brave meant being scared but doing it anyway. And she'd tell them what she learned from all of it, that survival wasn't the goal, living was, really living, messy and imperfect and full of people who made you vulnerable but also made you whole. That strength came not from standing alone, but from knowing when to reach out for help. That healing didn't mean erasing your past. It meant carrying it forward into something better. And that sometimes the worst moments of your life led you exactly where you needed to be, to a small cabin in the mountains, to people who understood trauma because they'd survived their own, to a life built not on power or control or endless fighting, but on connection and trust, and the simple radical act of letting yourself be loved. That was the real victory. not defeating her enemies, not exposing corruption or saving her company or proving she was strong enough to survive anything. The real victory was this: standing on a deck overlooking the mountains, with Cole's arm around her shoulders and Lily's laughter echoing through the trees, and finally, feeling like she'd found something worth more than all the money in the world. She'd found home. And she'd found it in the last place she ever expected to look: